joining us today from Berlin, one of the directors together with Moritz. And first of all, thank you very much for the movie. You know, big success, Sundance Film Festival. Very good score on Rotten Tomatoes, as I just told you before. And what I want to start with is just maybe a question a lot of you have in the room as well, is how did the idea come up? Like, how do you come up with the idea of, okay, I really want to know what happens to my Facebook posts, or what happens to other people's Facebook posts when I report them? How did you start?
Yeah, the starting point of our research for the film was actually more than 6 years ago, and it was a cruel post on Facebook. On March 2013, many users discovered a post where a man abused a little child, and the video stayed on Facebook for a while. And we heard about that case, and we asked the question, why is that happening? Because the World Wide Web is full of disgusting things, but why don't we see such content very often on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube? And then we researched about that, and first we thought maybe it's just an algorithm or machine learning process, how they handle content like this, and then we found out that actually there are humans behind those decisions, and thousands of humans behind those decisions, and most of the work is being outsourced to the developing world, for example Manila, the Philippines. And that was interesting for us in several levels, because first we thought that maybe this work is very hard to handle, because they sit in front of a screen 8 to 10 hours and review the worst you can imagine, and that actually have a big effect on their mental health. And on the other level, it was interesting because it's also a question about freedom of speech. How do they handle freedom of speech on Facebook, for example? How do they decide what is being uploaded there and what is deleted on Facebook? And then we started researching, and it was quite a long trip to really got in contact with these workers, because it's a very, very hidden and secretive industry. They are not allowed to talk about what they are doing. They sign non-disclosure agreements. They have a lot of reprisals when they talk, for example, to foreigners like us. So that took us quite a long while to really make the film.
And maybe I'll just, touch on that point. How did you actually reach out to the industry? You just mentioned it, it's a bit of a shadow industry, something where people sign a lot of paperwork to, make them not talk with anyone. So, we saw a few snippets of emails that seem to have actively reaching out to you. So how did you go about that? How did you actually, achieve to tap into this shadow industry?
So first it was really just like assumption that this work is being outsourced to the Philippines. And when we traveled the first time to Manila, we didn't know exactly if it's really true. There is the BPO industry, it's called Business Process Outsourcing Industry, and there are hundreds of outsourcing companies doing services for the Western world, for example, call center services, mail support services. And the first step was to figure out what kind of companies doing content moderation, so the moderation process for the big social media clients. And that took us a long while. We collaborate with local students in Manila to find out who's doing what. And actually, by coincidence, we heard about a code word. Because the workers, when they talked about their work, they very often talked about, for example, the honey badger project. It's a small animal in the desert. And then we figured out that whenever they work for Facebook, for example, they have to use code words, because they are not allowed to claim that they work for Facebook. And after we recognized that honey badger project means Facebook, it was easier for us to figure out who's working for what kind of company. And then the next step was really to build a relationship of trust with them, because we didn't want to harm any of the workers because of our research for the film. We have been very, very careful to really build this relationship, and we thought a lot about how to include in the film and what is too dangerous to include. But then there was something we didn't expect, that they are really proud of what they are doing. They really like to share. We are the ones who making sure that all of you, the users, are in a safe environment. And they really like to share the fact that they are existing and they doing this kind of hard work. And that was kind of the moment we knew the film is possible.
And some of them said that they're like the guardians of the internet, right? The guardians of like principles or similar. So they did want to be seen. Officially, we're not allowed. So how was it for you then, when you, after you did the research, once you built that trust, which took quite a long time, as you said, how did you go about actually shooting it? How was, were there specific obstacles? Did the BPO companies, did they cooperate, or how was that for you?
No, that was another very big challenge, how to make a film about a topic which is invisible, because of course we had no access to these companies, because they didn't want us to report about that kind of work. So every company has their own security services. They are highly protected, so it was not possible to enter as a film team this kind of work environment. And we didn't want to smuggle a hidden camera into the offices, because what do you see there? Just a shaking image, and you didn't know anything about the work. So quite before we recognized, okay, it's impossible to do a film about that work, we found an abandoned office space in Manila. It was under construction in one of these big buildings, and we rented the office space at night, because they stopped working inside this office space, and it was an original office space with all the computers, with all the workspaces and dashboards, and that was our safe environment where we could invite our protagonists, our content moderators, and we asked them to moderate in front of the camera, and we asked them in between, why are you deciding to delete this kind of image? Why are you deciding to ignore this kind of image? And that was kind of the changing point while we researched, and we knew now it's possible to make that happening.
And I think that's a very, very important point, right? So there's people that look at content that might be very important, that might be, protected by freedom of speech. When you saw this review process, was that quite often this like one-click split-second decision, or was it like how Ms. Wong said it, like it was like a daily process to review whether they want to keep the video of Saddam Hussein online? What was what you experienced most? Do you feel like that they always did this balance, or did they mostly just, click, that's it?
Yeah, for us it was kind of overwhelming how they to figure out how they moderate, what are the rules. There was one moment in our research when one of the workers popped up a little laptop, and he started reviewing with such a speed that we just look at the screen and we didn't know anything about that. We are confused, because how to decide about images within seconds. And that's one of the main problems, because they have a kind of a big amount of content they have to review every day, which one of the moderators told in the film, that they even have to fulfill a credit of 25,000 images a day, which means you have just a few seconds to decide about every image or video you see. And of course, this is impossible to really figure out if this kind of image is, for example, newsworthy, if this image is satire or art, if it's inappropriate or appropriate. So it's really not possible to have a really clear and thoughtful decision-making process with such a speed. And this is one of the biggest scandals we have, that they are very, very young. Sometimes the workers are just 18, 19, 20 years old. They have a training 5 to 10 days. And then they have to work, and within the training they have to learn hundreds of guidelines, hundreds of rules, and then go for it. And there's no time really to think about carefully what to do, and most of the time they told us it's just their gut feelings to decide about images. And this is very critical in a environment where more than 3 billion people use social media every day, and Facebook or Instagram or Twitter is not anymore a platform where you can share cute cat videos or holiday pictures. It's also a very political platform. It's our political and public open space, our environment where we discuss issues. And so it's very, very important what is visible on these platforms and what is not. And after we met all the content moderators we knew, it's really not careful. They don't take in care about the big responsibility they have.
So maybe touching on exactly this being like a content media platform, right? That don't take sides. Facebook, you know, Zuckerberg said, share anything with anybody. How do you feel, you know, after all this research and also, you know, showing the movie? Do you feel that's really what they are? What is your take on this claim from social media platforms to be like an open, neutral platform for content?
I mean, this is one of the narratives of the Silicon Valley, that they just provide technology. It's just, as you said, a neutral platform for everyone. And after we researched a while and we dig into that kind of topic, we recognize it's not a neutral tool, because whenever you build something like technology, you have a goal. And also Facebook is designed in a very specific way. The architecture of Facebook is very specific. So they're trying to have as much as users possible. They try to have views and clicks and traffic on these social media platforms. And what we as the user found out after a while, that the more you post something sensational or extreme or just a very impressive headline, the more traffic you gain at the end. And this is changing our behavior as the user as well. So they are very interested in, for example, so to say, hate speech on these platforms, because at the end of the day, they're making money out of it because of advertising. And just to make sure, you can also design those platforms in a completely different way to support, for example, a culture of discussion, to support more understanding, to support complex issues on these platforms. And this is not what they are doing. So technology is never just a neutral tool. It's used for a certain reason. And as you already saw in Myanmar, it could have a real impact on our analog world. And sometimes it has a very dangerous effect on democracies worldwide.
So at this point, I have a few follow-up questions on that, but I just want to also ask the audience if you have any questions you would like to ask at the moment. We have a question over there. Who has the floating microphones? There's one on its way.
Hi, I have a question. Like in the beginning, when you were filming this video, this movie, how did you feel? And at the end, how did you feel? How does this process changes you?
Yeah, interesting question. Thank you. I would say I was not a typical social media user when we start making the movie. I was already very skeptical using Facebook, and I just post a few posts on Facebook since we started the film. But what was really changing for me is the absurdity to recognize that there is someone sitting, I'm from Germany, sitting 10,000 kilometers away or miles away in Manila, deciding about content which I am posting. Because there was also a moment when we have researched in the Philippines that one of the moderators told us, you have a big problem in Germany right now. You have a lot of right-wing activists posting hate speech against refugees, against minorities all the time. And we had a special training about German slurs and German Nazi symbols. And that was weird because they decide about what is allowed to say in Germany. And this had a strong effect on my social media use. Whenever I post something, I think about maybe someone is reviewing that 10,000 miles away from me. And this is kind of interesting to reflect that in this moment, because I think maybe most of you didn't know anything about content moderation before you saw the film. And I'm even more skeptical after making the film.
Some more questions? Could you just pass the microphone on, please?
Hello, good afternoon. So I'm actually from the Philippines, so it was kind of an inconvenient truth for me as well watching it, because I also previously worked for data analytics, content analytics, machine learning, stuff like that, and I know how this works. So I'm not really from the content moderation. I'm more in the machine learning phase. But yeah, it was quite weird watching it because it was my country, and I also understand the industry behind it. So I do realize that as an artist, you have to highlight the grotesque. That's basically what is artistry. But at the same, so there was a lot of imagery of poverty in the film. So like the squalid streets, the trash everywhere, stuff like that, and. Like in a developing country, Philippines has its own share of social economic divide between the rich and the poor. And I was wondering, because your topic was more on content moderation, how did that enrich the film of showing poverty in the country? Because I thought it was kind of disjointed from the message. Yeah.
So the reason why we included that to the film was because one of the moderators. Because they told us at the beginning, there was a process while we worked with them, that her mother, as you can saw on the film, said to her, you have to educate yourself very well in order not to become a scavenger. And that was her narrative, and that's why she studied very well and she tried to make every courses very well. And then she entered the BPO industry, and her first job was working as a content moderator. And she thought that now she's in a nice environment, air-conditioned offices, she's sitting in the 30th floor deciding what is visible in all around the world, so she felt very happy. And after a while, we talked to her and we visit her again and again, she realized she's actually doing the same like the scavengers. She's also handling all the garbage from all the world. It's not the analog garbage, it's the digital garbage. And that was what really was impressing to us, because she's right in the moment. Years ago, the Western world, Canada, you know, that shipped the toxic waste to the Philippines, and that was kind of how we how they worked with the Philippines, and now it's like the same. They ship all the digital waste via fiber optic cable to the Philippines as well, and that was what we like to point it out when we showed the scene with all the garbage and the tips there.
A question on the left-hand side.
Just wondering, how did you decide on the aesthetics of the film? Because it seemed to me that the film was highly aestheticized, highly polished. You used very specific angles, close-ups, then those angles like looking from the outside into an office and so on. So it was very specific aesthetics, and I was wondering how you came up with that exactly. Thank you.
So the visual language of the film, there are two main reasons how we decide to do the film like you saw it. One of the reasons was that actually the content moderators, they worked also at night, because whenever it's daytime in Europe, it's nighttime in the Philippines, and the traffic is very high. So even the night shifts of the workers, there are lots of people working because they have to. And that was the reason why we decided to film almost at night in the Philippines, and also to have a contrast to the bright, shiny Silicon Valley, because this is whenever we think about social media and Facebook, it's always the shine bright, colorful technology companies, and we think they have also a dark side behind those colorful images, and this is what we'd like to point it out in our film, that there is a shadow industry, that there is a flip side of what you can see every day. And also, when we've been there into the Philippines the first time, as a filmmaker, you try to translate your feelings, your impressions when you've been there into a film. And that was kind of the wrestle, that for us it was really hard to research there, and we also felt a lot unsecure while we did that, because when there was for example, one incident when we tried to have access to the workers there, a security member of one of the companies took photos of our team and sent it to the whole company and said, if you speak to them, then you will lose immediately your job. So there was always the atmosphere of fear. Are we able to research tomorrow? Maybe we have to leave Manila, maybe something is going into the wrong direction. So we tried to translate that into the film, that this is kind of a thriller. This is kind of there's a lot of tension in that film, because we felt that while we researched there. So this is why we decided to make maybe not just very clear, neutral documentary. We try to make it compromised, and you also have to frame your feelings when you are a filmmaker, and that was two of the main reasons why we did it like this.
We have some more on the left side. Do we have the second microphone on the left side for a sec?
Hello, thank you for your film. Can you please tell me in which platforms did you show this film, and how did you plan to spread it around?
So we premiered the film last year at the Sundance Film Festival, and then we did more than 80 festivals around the world. So we showed the film in Brazil, in Canada, in Malaysia, in Japan, all around Europe, in the States, Latin America. So almost all over the world. The film had also a cinema release in a lot of countries, also TV releases, the BBC in Great Britain, PBS in America, in Germany it was RRD and Arte. So the film spread around the world, which was very, very nice for us, not just because we are very proud of that, because also we think it's very important to discuss this topic all around the world. So it is really an international film, and we reached also a very international audience, and that was also interesting for us as the filmmaker to discuss the film all around the world, because then after making the film we realized, for example, how difficult it is to discuss freedom of expression. For example, there's one scene in the film with a right-wing activist in the States, and we asked, whenever we screened the film, we asked the audience in the United States if they are fine with what is he saying against refugees. And the majority said, yeah, we are totally fine because it's covered by the First Amendment. This is our freedom of speech. When we screened the film in Europe, we asked the same question, and many of the people in the audience said, no, he's not allowed to say so. Because we have some borders in our freedom of speech, because of our history, because of the Second World War. We know what can happen if we allowed to say everything to everyone. So that was kind of very nice for us to experience, to discuss the film around the world. Was that the question?
Just try again.
Okay, I wanted to ask a very short second question. Did you plan to make a shorter version so more people can see it? Because I'm from Russia, I've never heard of it. I don't know why.
Why shorter? You can see
Because
90 minutes in Russia as well.
No, I'm not talking about the short format for Russia. I'm talking about the short format that is more popular in the modern world, social media, yes.
Yeah, we have also a 60-minute version and also a 45-minute version, and there will be also a 20 minutes version. As you can imagine, to making a film like this, it costs a lot of money, and that's why it's not the moment to just post the film on YouTube, because then we have a lot of costs which are not covered. But hopefully, after we are fine with our balance, we wanted to post the film as well on YouTube and Facebook to make sure everyone sees it. But unfortunately, a film costs a lot of money. That's why we have to wait till we have to cover all the costs. And hopefully, I mean, we had also a screening in Moscow at the Russian Film Festival. And after that, they told us that they're thinking about broadcasting it in Russia as well. So maybe it will happen there as well.
Another one here on the left, to the front. Sorry, you're right.
Hello.
Hi. Green is
Just once again.
Good. I just wanted to ask if you did some legal actions after the film. And also the second question, you said that it was screened at the Sundance Festival. And okay, so what were the reactions over there? How was it accepted at the Sundance Festival?
There was no legal action against the film, but we worked from the very beginning on with a couple of lawyers in that film to first make sure that no one of the content moderators in the film is harmed because of the film. That's why we decided just to include, for example, workers which are former workers, which left the job till the film was broadcasted. Otherwise, we didn't felt to secure them very well. But also, we sent the film before it was broadcasted at the Sundance Film Festival to all the big social media companies, to Facebook, Google, and Twitter. And we asked them what they think about the film, and we asked them also to include a statement, which we offered to include before the premiere, and there was no reaction. They didn't react after the film was broadcasted around the world. They tried to ignore it, that the film exists. The only thing which happened a lot of times is that the trailer was deleted on YouTube, for example, and on Facebook as well sometimes. So that was kind of sad and funny at the same time, that a film about content moderation is deleted on those platforms. Yeah, but until now, there's no legal action, and hopefully there will no one. And yeah, the Sundance Film Festival, it was a very, very nice experience, and the film was really well discussed there. We thought, yeah, a German film broadcasted there, maybe no one is interested, but it wasn't the case. A lot of media outlets talked about the film. It was really well discussed, so we are very happy that everybody recognized the film.
Very good. So one question here, and then we have the next person over there.
Hi. First of all, welcome to our university, ISWI. First question. Is it okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
First, one question I didn't understand in the movie was the three errors that they were allowed to do in 1 month. I didn't understand that part. One of the content moderators, he was talking about the 3 errors.
So just to quickly
Shall I explain it again?
Yes, and I have a follow-up second question too, but first you can answer that.
Yeah, so what we found out is how is the quality checking within the company. And first, they just check 3% of the decision of a content moderators to make sure that there are no fails, that there are no wrong decisions. And whenever they found out that someone did a mistake, they have just 3 errors in 1 month, and when they have more errors, they are fired. So this is what the moderators told us, and yeah, this is kind of also a very big pressure on them that they make the right decision within seconds.
And there was a follow-up question.
Yes, of course. You said you are in constant interaction with the content moderators. So has there been any cases of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD? Has there been any cases of PTSD in the content moderators? Because in the movie we saw that they go through a lot of mental stress as well. Like, you know, the guy who was kissing his kid before he went back to his computer to look into the videos. So do you have any opinion on that?
Yes. So the suicide case in our film is unfortunately not a single case. There's a very high suicide rate within the industry, and that's why the companies have no proper psychological support. It depends about what company we are talking about, but most of the companies have no psychological support. Some have, but what that means is very interesting, because then we asked how does the psychological support look like, and then they told us that they meet quarterly in a meeting where everybody sits in one room like here, and then the psychologist asks the question, okay, how do you feel? And then everybody looks on the ground. They are afraid to talk about their feelings because they are afraid of losing their jobs. So there's no one-to-one situation. There's no proper psychological support. And then there's a second reason. Maybe you know the reason that also the mental health situation in the Philippines is not very well discussed. Most of the people, they said to us, I'm not crazy. I have no problems. So they don't feel that mental health issues or psychological problems are very typical problems you can heal. They can talk to a doctor and it's normal. So we worked with psychologists from the Berlin Trauma Center and also a psychologist in the Philippines, and we offered everyone who is included in the film, and also we talked to a lot of more content moderators, we offered them psychological support, and just one of them really took the chance and talked to our psychologist in Manila. So this is also a cultural reason why it's really hard to provide a proper psychological support in the Philippines.
Cool, thank you very much. We have someone on the right here. No, just try speaking directly to it. Yeah.
Thank you for delivering this great movie that enriches us, and at the same time, thank you for your great speech. I have several questions. First, considering in the film that, and you say that those people in Philippines decide the content, regulate content, and decide what should be shown, right? But also there are some quality reviewers who can fire those workers from the outsourcing companies. And so it seems that not the Philippine people decide what should, but those quality reviewers, because they set the rules and the measures, and those workers work in the framework of these rules, right? So my question goes like, to what extent those quality reviewers decide what content should be shown, and what role do they perform, and what should be done about it? And second question, why these outsourcing companies are located particularly in Philippines? Thank you.
So to your second question, Manila is not the only destination for content moderation. There's also, for example, a big spot in Berlin. In Germany, they opened another Germany location in Essen. The work is done in Poland as well. So there are many destinations, but Manila is one of the biggest spots for content moderation worldwide. And it was also the first destination for content moderation. This is an interesting question, why they did it. Obviously, because it's a low-wage country. So, as you can imagine, there are thousands of workers doing that kind of job. They told us they getting $1 to $3 per hour, deciding on their skills and on the status they are working in. Which is also not for the Philippines that much. It's because for many of the workers, the salary is not just for them, for a bigger family. They have to take care on the electrical costs, on food and so on. We saw a promoting video from one of the outsourcing teams where we heard about that they are very... Because of their history, because the Philippines was also colonized by the US Americans and by the Spanish, that they share the same values than the Western world. And that's why the outsourcing companies said Manila is the perfect spot to do that kind of work. Because we share the same pop culture, the same sport teams and so on. This is a narrative of these companies. To your first question, it was about the guidelines. So every company like Facebook, Twitter have an all rule book, guidelines, community standards, and they translate these guidelines into a training test. So there are hundreds of pages, as I said, with a lot of confusing rules they have to learn, and because of this rule book, they have to make decisions. So this is how the process is working. So the Silicon Valley-based companies send this rulebook to, for example, the Philippines, to an outsourcing destination, and they have to work with this kind of rules.
So we had a question over there.
First of all, thank you for making this film and giving me a reason to delete my Facebook account. So my question is, okay, thank you. So my question is, what camera did you use to film this movie? And which software did you use to edit this movie?
Very technical question.
Yes.
But the answer is very easy and short. We filmed with the Sony FS7. This was our main camera, and we had a second smaller camera. Maybe you used that as well, as the Sony Alpha 2S. And we edit with Avid. That's it.
Another question here on the left.
Here, I'm getting a microphone. Okay, so first of all, thank you for the movie. And I guess since you're now traveling from conference to conference or in festivals, so you're discussing a lot about this content you're presenting, and also you're presenting some kind of the problem about some NGOs or facing hard times presenting harsh content since they're overblocked, and on the other hand, some problematical right-wing content is maybe underblocked, you could argue about. So there is somehow the question rising, okay, how do we handle these? Should society actively take care of these? And what are maybe solutions for the presented problems, how we could maybe not solve them completely, but minimize them, or even taking a step into making stuff better and everything? I guess since most of us just got bumped into these right now, and so for me it's really harsh to imagine a solution, but you've been into the topic for quite a while and maybe have heard about solutions we can't think about right now.
Yeah, I think this is the hardest question ever, how to solve the problem, because, as you said, it's a problem, security versus freedom, and we have to find the right balance between those things, two things. That's why we created the film, that the first part was about what happens when there's too much censoring on these platforms, and the second part of the film was the flip side, what happens when we underblock things, when too much content which is maybe disturbing, is online. So the solution is really not easy. I mean, obviously, the ones who are deciding about the content, they shouldn't be low-wage workers with a very low qualification, and because they are overwhelmed, it's not because of them, but it's because they have such a big responsibility to handle that we have to really make sure that they are, for example, journalists, experts of specific issues, topic issues, dealing with the content, which is obviously very, very expensive for those companies to hire experts than low-wage workers. But we have to really, what is the price for our internet? What is the price for social media? And I think more and more things are in the digital world, and we really have to change our perspective and to think, okay, we really have to make sure that there are people who taking really care and taking heading into the right directions, handling the overwhelming responsibility they have. So this is one piece. There are a few layers where we have to do some things. There's a political layer that state authorities have really to regulate those companies. There's a big monopoly going on that the internet was created like a process where a lot of people really participate in this utopian idea to connect each other, and now we are just using a few big companies or sites like Google, YouTube, Twitter, and so on, and we really have to decentralize the power of the internet, and maybe have to think about to give it into the public hands and to create new institutions like, for example, the Digital United Nations, who really try to collect all peoples who are involved in this utopian idea and first discuss the values. What are our values for example, freedom of speech? And this discussion has to be discussed openly within the society, so that we really feel a responsibility when we also on Facebook or on Instagram or so on. Because now it feels like the internet is kind of the Wild West. You can do everything you like to there. And we have to really to change our behavior like a user and become more a member, a digital citizen, to take responsibility, to flag content, to discuss issues of freedom of speech within these platforms. And yeah, but there is no easy solution for that. I deal with that question for more than 2 years now, or 3 years, and there was no easy solution I can provide you now within seconds.
Some more questions over there, and then further to right.
Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. I'm also from the Philippines, but I live in the US now, so I kind of see both ends of the spectrum of the film. The film's actually kind of twofold. First is about content moderation, and the second one is about the mental health issues that are effects of content moderating. My question is on that second issue about mental health issues. Since you've presented the film in various conferences, various film festivals, have you at any point also talked about the resolution presentation of what the Philippines now is doing to battle mental health issues? Have you talked about what the Philippine government now is doing to help out these people that are affected because of the job that they do?
Yeah, very good question. What we did after we screened the film and what we are also doing right now, first we are still in contact with all the people who are involved in the film frequently, and there's also one organization in Manila, it's called BIEN. It's a labor work organization, try to handle all kinds of mental health problems in the BPO industry. And what we did is a lot of times we helped them. We also asked people to put money into the organization that they can grow, that they have a proper the proper instrument to really fix the problem. So this is what we are working on since we started screening the film. And they also becoming more and more powerful, and they have more and more instruments and yeah, to handle that kind of issue there. And we are still in contact with everyone because PTSD is nothing which is just when you work inside such an environment which can cause problems also after you worked as a content moderator. Years after, you can have problems, PTSD problems. So that's why we also taking care with them in the next years and providing them again and again psychological support to make sure that everybody is fine.
So a question here on the right hand side, more on the front.
Hi. So it's not a question, it's more of an opinion, and I would like to hear what you are going to say in return. So the movie was nice, I enjoyed it, like the first 45 minutes, then I actually fell asleep, but I'm going to tell you the reason. So the problem, I think, is we are emphasizing on not the major problem, but the minor problem. So the major problem would be people who are actually suffering, for example, child porn, there are like literally kids being raped, and explosions, there are people dying. And the minor problem is people viewing these images or these videos. I mean, yeah, we should care about them, but not make a huge deal of it. Because like, if we are caring about this right now, we are not really caring about the bigger picture, which is people actually suffering. Yeah.
So what is your question?
Not a question, I'm just
It's
saying.
just a comment, okay.
Just a comment on the movie.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we can touch, following on those questions, because I think one thing that you tapped into there is the importance also of NGO works, or NGOs that want to show there is violence in the world, there's war crimes in the world, and that they now actually struggle to get access to content before it's filtered out. Like, not just filtered, it's completely deleted. And sometimes even law enforcement, even the big NSA, struggles to get access to data. How do you see that from after doing this film? Should there be more emphasis on maybe not just like archiving, but keeping things for certain public agencies or NGOs available to do this kind of research and investigations? What is your opinion on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever you like to make a film, I think this is a very, very good topic to make another film about, because we just tackled a little tiny organization like Air Wars in the film, who's archiving all the citizen journalist material from, for example, the Syrian war, which is very, very important because sometimes media journalists have no access to those areas, and this is the only source we have. And if evidence like this is deleted by the big social media companies, this has a very, very big impact on for example, to make sure that we really figure out how's the conflict going on there on the ground. And there's so many things online which is deleted and evidence are away. We didn't see anything. For example, there was a very interesting statistic we read in the States that domestic violence got down after Facebook becomes more popular, because for example, a video where domestic violence is documented is maybe deleted by Facebook, and then the evidence is just away. So there's just one case which we figured out, that Facebook is cooperate with another organization. It's called NCMEC, and whenever a child abuse video popped up on Facebook, they have to escalate this kind of content to this organization NCMEC, and they get all the information's IP address and location and so on, and they forwarded these informations to the local authorities to maybe find the one who's responsible for that. But in every other cases, and there are a lot of more cases which are very important to check and to find out who's the one who posted that, the material is just gone. And this is really a big problem for solving violence online, solving a lot of cases which are very, very important to solve.
And just a quick follow-up on this one. Did you ever learn about the reasons why there's not more collaboration with law enforcement? Why is there not, you know, if there's a violent video, abuse of whatever kind, why is that not escalated to, you know, other organizations?
There's just one assumption we have, that it's because of the global network. The world is things, or how to say that, child abuse material, child pornography, sexual child abuse, everybody in the world knows or is clear about this is not allowed. So that's why they handle it worldwide in the same way. But for example, violence, it's much more complicated. For maybe some of the states, this kind of violence is totally fine, and in another region, it's illegal to show that online. So that's why they just do it with child abuse videos. This is my assumption.
So we have time for 2 more questions from the audience. So let's take one here, one here. Here at the front. And you already had 2, sorry. And we have 1 question there.
Actually, I want to say thank you very much for this video. Actually, we need to know that there are people who clean the internet, and we don't have to see this content. It's very harmful. For example, for me, to see it, only to hear about this is harmful, and to see it, I think it's horrible. And I want to make a question. So you're talking about cleaning the internet, cleaning the content, and at the same time you're talking about cleaning the drug dealers. And what is interesting, so I didn't get, the link is like cleaning the content is good and we support it, but cleaning the drug dealers and cleaning people, you don't support it, yeah? Is it right, or what was the point of this? I'm interested, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so when we researched there, what we heard not just one time, several times talking to content moderators is that they compared themselves with Rodrigo Duterte, which is now the president in the Philippines, which was a bit interesting for us okay, why you think you are the same like the president? And then they told us that they actually do the same like Duterte does for the streets, for the internet. They try to find the criminals. They try to solve social problems. They try to make things invisible which are not appropriate. So, and then we asked, okay, what is Duterte doing right now? And there is an estimated number of 20,000 people have been killed after Rodrigo Duterte rules the Philippines, because there are a lot of extrajudicial killings on the streets every night. And that was kind of shocking for us, to saying, okay, is this the direction, the political direction we are moving worldwide right now, to making things invisible and not just solve the problems at all, to have just symptoms and make them invisible? in order to solve it. And it's not just the Philippines, it's in the States as well, it's in Europe as well, it's all around the world that populism is gaining strength every day, and the solving direction is ununderstandable for us. It's really shocking, so to say. That's why we included this narrative, which was which happened a lot of times while we researched there. This is why we added it into the film.
So we have one more question here on the left.
Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you for this video, because I'm someone who has been very critical about censoring on the social media. And it's a really very good video, to my opinion, because it exposes those dark actions. However, I want to ask you about a very, very more relaxing question. And my question is like, considering the complexity of this kind of censorship, or maybe which video to take down or which one to leave up, if you made the CEO of Facebook or YouTube or Google, or Microsoft, which I think they do less of this, what are you going to do in order to address this problem? So consider yourself as the CEO.
If you imagine you're now the CEO of Google, what would you do? What would you change? That's how I understood your question.
Yeah. First of all, I really would start with decentralization. I think it's not very good that one person like Mark Zuckerberg has such a big responsibility about more than 2 billion people around the world, because he's not able to really overview what is going on around the world. What are political problems in Myanmar and all around the world? It's just overwhelming. So I would start to decentralize all the power to many, many hands. I would start thinking about putting those big social media companies into the public hand, and to create an infrastructure where we have access from several accounts, like our mail system. We can send mails together, and we have all different mail accounts and mail services. Social media should also be an infrastructure, an open infrastructure where we can meet each other, but we have access from different points. So that would be one thing I think it's really worth, because when I'm thinking, okay, data protection is very important for me, I choose the right service and go there. And if someone is not interested in data protection, take another account or another service to have access to these infrastructures. So this is, I think, the main problem, that there's really a monopoly going on, and there are just a few companies running the whole internet, so to say. So I would ruin my company as a CEO.
Break it up. I would have, because we are slowly getting to the end of today, have a question on, so you mentioned what would you do as the CEO, you mentioned where we should go as like a more abstract, humanity, but ISWI, it's all about taking action, it's about, taking personal responsibility. What would be things that you would like to recommend, talk about in this room? What can people do in their daily life to improve the situation? So you mentioned the organization BIAN in Philippines to help with PTSD and deal with that. What would be other things that you would recommend to make the situation better, achieve this bigger goal that you mentioned before?
Yeah, I think it's too easy to recommend you to leave Facebook or Instagram, because then that was also a question we asked ourselves: could we stay on Facebook? We still have a Facebook account, but we think we have to use the platform. We have to use the public to discuss those issues, and this is what I recommend to you: to first share the film of course, to as many people as you can, and then not be overwhelmed or say there are so many problems, what can I do? It can start with you. It can start that you flag more content, that you maybe discuss an issue, maybe to have counter speech on those platforms, to comment more, to really take part of a engaging discussion on these social media platforms, because it's all about us. We are the users, and when we want to have a change, then at the end of the day, Zuckerberg or other CEOs will change it, because otherwise they are losing the users. If we would like to have more digital rights, claim it. At the end of the day, if more and more people don't do so, then there will be a change at the end of the day. So start now, don't be overwhelmed, and try your best.
Very good. Thank you very much for that. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for the great questions. And a big applause, please, for Hans for joining us tonight. Thank you for coming over.
Thank you. Thank you.